Okay. I don't know what the heck just happened, but my phone is doing its own thing. But I was saying, I had said in a previous vlog about how people basically pester you and expect you to spend your every waking moment at work answering their calls or their texts or their instant messages or their emails. And then they wonder why you're not getting work done. My every waking moment is not spent waiting for you to call me or, looking forward to answering your emails or your instant messages. I have work to do, and it's so crazy. I just told my boss this morning how I really love this person and I appreciate them doing a great job, but it gets crazy. And his response was, tell her you'll answer her later. You don't think I've done that? Like, really? You don't think I've already done that? It didn't work. And it's so crazy because, and I'm not using this as a vent mode, because I do actually have something I want to talk about other than this. But it's so crazy because after I talked to him about that, she just started bombarding me with emails. And I didn't answer them. I didn't respond to them. I check my emails, like I said before, first thing in the morning and sometimes right before I leave. And but mostly it's first thing in the morning. And she just started bombarding me with emails, and I didn't bother. Then she sent me an instant message, and I responded to the instant message. And instead of her letting it go, she sent another one, and then another one, before I could even respond to the second one, and then another one. So it's like, okay, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have responded. So I responded to the last one, and before I could click off of the message good, she called and started talking to me about these reports. And I'm like, I don't have the time to look for them right now. I don't know what's going on in the system. No one is inputting anything that they shouldn't be inputting that I know of. I don't know what you're talking about. And I don't have the time to work on it now because I'm trying to get stuff in. And she says, well, I think someone's messing with the forms. Someone's doing something within the system. And I said, this is what I know. And I told her what I know. And I let it go. She kept going and kept going and kept going and kept going. And I got to a point where I was leaning my head back on my chair, just listening, letting her talk. And after she and I got off the phone with me saying, I don't have time to look into this right now, she called another person and started asking them the same questions. And thankfully, they figured out what the issue was. But it took a good 5 minutes of my time, which there's a lot that I can do in 5 minutes. 5 minutes doesn't seem like a lot. But for my job, with the majority of the larger portion of my job, there's a lot that I can do in 5 minutes. And it's like, oh my gosh, really? I don't need your constant emails. I don't need, like, I've even said to her, make a list of everything that you need me to take a look at and send it to me in one email. She doesn't do that. I think as she thinks about them, she writes the email, sends it. Writes the email, sends it. Writes the instant message, sends it. And if I don't respond to any of that, then she'll call. So, I mean, she's a great person. She's doing her job very well. It's working well for her. She's been promoted. She's been given a raise. It's working for her. But it's keeping me from doing my job. I can't deal with it. So maybe there's no maybe. There is something that I'm supposed to be getting out of this. What yet? I haven't figured out. But That's not what I came back on here for. I came back on here because I wanted to talk about Jonathan McReynolds' song Cycles from his new CD, Making Room. Now, I have yet to hear, and I'm saying new because it's new to me. It may have been out for about a year now. I don't know. But I've yet to hear the actual title song, the title single. But this song, Cycles, has my mind just blown, because it really talks about the cycles that we go through, the cycles that we, repeat. And some of them don't even start out as our cycles. They're, cycles that we see in others. So this song just talks about that, and how the enemy really likes to keep us in those cycles so that we can never get ahead, so that we can never live out our real purpose, so that we can never move forward. And how we have to get past that, how we have to lean on God's promises and on his word to get past that. And some people will say, well, that's kind of contradictory. You just, went ham on this girl that's doing her job and she's doing it to the best of her ability. But at the same time, you're talking about getting out of bad habits and cycles and things of that nature. And that's correct. It is contradictory. It was my moment of venting. And it is what it is, because even in the midst of all of this, I am still human, and I'm trying to live my best life, but sometimes it's not easy when you have things that trigger you. So that's a cycle of mine. I know that something triggers me, and I have the option of overcoming that trigger or venting on that trigger. And in this case, I decided to vent on it. But that can be a cycle, and that's how gossip gets started, and that's how people begin to dislike others for things like this. That's how one of those habits gets started. That's how one of those cycles gets started. The cycle of hating on someone for doing their job diligently. The cycle of gossiping about someone. So yeah, that's how it gets started if you don't take control. So this song just opens up all of that. In me. It goes deep, and it starts digging and de-weeding, the stuff that's going on. It begins to de-weed. It pulls the weeds out. So I absolutely love this song. And my question is, what cycles have you noticed in your life that you need to work diligently on eliminating? Negative cycles, of course, that you need to work diligently on eliminating. And when I said before about some of these cycles are not even yours, some of them aren't. Some of these cycles are cycles that you grew up with, that you saw in others, and it has now become a part of your life. Like the cycle of living in debt. The cycle of living in debt. I saw that coming up. The cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. The cycle of being more materialistic than financially sound. And when I say more materialistic, I'm not talking about they had to have the best of this, or they had to have the name brand that. But for them being family members, it was more about, I've got to do what the others do because they're doing it, and I don't want them to think less of me if I don't do it. It was that kind of keeping up with the Joneses in a way. Not with name brand items, and not with, multiple, well, in some cases, multiple cars, but just, okay, so-and-so has a house, I've got to have a house. So-and-so has the ability to, buy rounds of drinks for people, Okay, I'm going to buy rounds of drinks for people. So-and-so went on vacation. Okay, so now I've got to go on vacation. Or, even though I don't have the money, I'm going on vacation. Or even though my credit sucks and it's going to cost me a good $200 to $300 more in mortgage because my credit sucks, I've got to have a house right now. Because in the end, the house will pay off. It will pay itself off. You know, things like that. Things that we see like that. Or it could be the materialistic thing. You know, people have got to have name brand this and name brand that because it's the latest brand and they don't want people to look at them negatively. So they buy it even though they can't afford it. You know? Or they take that trip, like I said before, even though they can't afford to take that trip. I've done that multiple times and it's ridiculous. So it's the cycle of living in poverty. The cycle of living beyond your means. You know, that's just insane. Or the cycle of failed relationships. You know, you see nothing but failed relationships as you're growing up, so you think that's the norm and you take on that same cycle and you have continuous failed relationships. Or the cycle of depression. You know, you see depression as you're growing up and it looks like normal to you, so that's how you live your life. Or you fall into depression and you never come out because it's comfortable, or you refuse to seek help. You know, the cycle of false pride. The cycle of false pride. We so get into not asking for help because we're too proud. You know, that was the example that was set before us, that we don't ask for help. We go to God in prayer for all of our things, all of our wants and all of our needs. And that's true. That's what we do. We go to God we go to God in prayer for all of our needs and our wants. But there's nothing wrong with asking for help. There's nothing wrong with going to a certified clinician to get help if we're depressed, if we're sad, if we're sick, if we're, you know, a little melancholy, whatever the case may be. There's nothing wrong with going to a licensed clinician for that. We see the cycle of anything, you know, it could be a bad cycle of anything, you know, a bad cycle of just breaking the law. You know, we start out stealing a piece of candy from the grocery store, don't get caught, so we move on, and then that cycle escalates, and now we're not stealing candy from the grocery store, but we're stealing cars, or we're embezzling money. You know, these are actual cycles that we can break, but we can't break them alone. We have to have God's help in breaking these things. And I know for some that may seem like that's so far-fetched, but no, that's so extreme. But no, these things happen. These things happen. People smoke a joint and get a buzz, and they like the way it feels, so they keep doing it, even though they'll never ever catch that first high. They'll never catch that first buzz. They'll never catch that initial high, that initial feeling of whatever it was, whether it's euphoria or I don't know, whatever that initial thing was. And they're constantly trying to catch it, so they're constantly smoking. It becomes a habit. It is a cycle. It's an addiction now. Whether it's cigarettes, whether it's weed, whether it's alcohol, whether it's hard drugs like coke or crack or meth or heroin, whatever. We get into these cycles, and we, in some cases, really want to get out, but we don't know how. How do we break this? How do we come out of this? How do we remove ourselves from it? And in some cases, you absolutely have to remove yourself from the situation, because you may be hanging out with people and this is what they do, so you do it too. But you can't do it by yourself. You need God. In my case, because I am a believer, because I am a Christian, because I believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, and I believe that Christ died for my sins, the sins that were committed by me even before I was born, the sins he knew that I was going to commit. I believe that, and I know that I have to have his help in getting out of these cycles and moving beyond this poor lifestyle that I live or have lived, and walking in my purpose, which is why I tell people, I don't just say peace and blessings and remember to walk in your purpose just because it sounds good. No, I mean that. I mean that. I want everyone to live in peace and be blessed, and I want them to walk in their purpose, their God-given purpose. These are, and I've said that before, this is what I want genuinely for people. So, what cycles are you in that you need to break? What bad habits do you need to come out of? Like, I've said to my husband on more than one occasion that, we need to start making better financial choices, or we're going to always be in this. And he's agreed. But once you've realized the problem, admitted your role in it, discussed it, especially if you've got a life partner, you've discussed it, you then have to put something into motion to come out of it. So that's where we are now. We're, trying to, and it's a little bit difficult on our side, just because of the health situation, but we're trying to figure out ways to make this better, make this work, get out of this cycle of financial upheaval. And again, some would say, well, if you're a coach, if you're a life coach, if you're a spiritual life coach, a writing coach, why don't you have the funds for, coming in from those things to, you should be living a certain way. You should be living a life of abundance, financial abundance. And they're right, I should be. However, if you know a little bit of our story, then you know why that hasn't happened. So yeah, what cycles do you need to break? What bad cycles do you need to break in your life? What bad cycles do you need to break in your life? And then once you figure out what those cycles are, what are you going to do to break them? What are you going to actively do to break those cycles? What are you going to do? That's a good question. It's really, and it's not that deep, but yet it is, because you gotta one, take responsibility, and then two, put it in motion. Put it in motion. Put the solution in motion. It's great to have the solution. It's great to have the answer. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to have the answer. But if you're not putting that answer, that solution into motion, then it's just words. It's just words. So, yeah, I'm home now. Peace and blessings. Remember to walk in your purpose, and know that I appreciate you.